At the same
where
time,
we
let's do it
talk
again.
about cameras every day. Hello and welcome to Camera Central News. This is where we're going to be going over all the little bits and pieces we've done this month, but also some camera news and photo news in general.
We've got some really interesting stuff to talk about this time as well, haven't we?
It's been a bit of a crazy month overall, really.
It has been around the whole wide world. It's been a little bit chaotic, hasn't it?
Fair enough. Well, let's start where things should start, and I'll let you pick the first topic.
Should we go with Canon first?
Let's go with Canon first.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the two camera releases.
Yeah.
Brand new R1 and the R5 II. Now, you've had a chance to get hands on
I've
both.
had a chance to get hands on. Unfortunately, I wasn't actually able to take photographs of the actual cameras themselves, which was a little bit, I wish I could have. But the cameras themselves, releasing two essentially flagship products at the same time. And what's been interesting about this release is Canon haven't gone down the same route as a lot of the other brands.
Yes, this is true.
Especially when it comes to the frame rates as well.
Yes, I think what's really interesting is both of these cameras are very relevant. Because often if you have multiple camera releases from one brand, you have like a main one, and then you have sub cameras that sort of complement the main one in a lot of respects. So it's interesting for them to bring out something that's quite widely accessible for a lot of different people. And I think that R1's really interesting. Hell of a price tag on it. It's a £7,000 body. That's what it is.
Yeah, so it's £7,000. But if you have a look at other flagships, so the Z9 actually comes in under £5,000.
Is it really?
So the R1 is a full £2,000 more expensive, and it doesn't do 120 frames a second for photography.
It's 40 frames a second, right?
It's just 40 frames a second on the electronic shutter.
Yeah.
Canon believes that what they've done here with the extra processor is introduce a lot less kind of like wobble in the image.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting to see what they've done here. I think it is really, next-gen tech inside of there. But when you're trying to compete your flagship against the other models, you can't help but think, should Canon have done something here?
Yeah, but then, so they've gone for lesser resolution, which is 24 megapixel, in comparison to a Z9, which is 46. But then it's that low light performance, or lack of low light performance in the Z9, and perhaps some other cameras from other brands too, which is what puts some people off. So if you are very keen on shooting low light with it, then it makes a lot more sense to go for that.
There's that side of the argument there as well. Is I commented on the actual video, so watch it either at the end of the video or just link in below. And I talk about the fact that do you really need 120
That's right.
frames?
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need that. So that's 40 raw images you get out of that.
Yeah.
And like you said, with the lower megapixel sensor, you actually get higher performance out of the image in terms of grain reduction.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's one of those things that kind of like combats each other, I guess. Yeah. And I have heard there's been really good talk on the autofocus as well, especially when it comes to the sports autofocus, which this is primarily released for the Olympics.
Yeah.
So having that sports autofocus, do you know much about this?
Yes.
So it actually tracks the balls, ball sports and stuff like that, which is mad. Don't smirk.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got a dirty mind.
It was because you smoked at me.
I like, which, really quite powerful and like intuitive bit of tech in that retrospect.
I really like ball sports.
So it's one of those ones where like, I feel the justification is there for the tech, but I think some people are thinking, which one is truly the flagship? Is it the R5 Mark II or is it the R1?
Yeah, but they're flagships for different reasons, aren't they? Let's be real.
Like, I mean that's it.
It's
really
quite a spec difference, and the type of photographer that would go for them would be very different. I feel.
Well, the other side of it is they've actually put themselves quite well in the market when it comes to flagship models, because of course I would class the A9 III as the flagship for
Sony.
For Sony, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's first global shutter, full frame sensor, and Canon is still pricing this more expensive because it's £6,100 for the A9. So what you got there is a smaller body, has a faster frame rate, but that global shutter. But this is where it comes back interesting to what you were saying, where it's that low light performance. And when you're talking about long telephoto lenses, does the R1 have the the added extra because they're not relying?
Yeah, because longer the focal length, the less light you get through the lens. And that's generally speaking. And But just coming back to that price tag slightly, it also feels like this is the only alternative really to a 1DX Mark III.
Yeah.
So it's the only option for Canon users.
Yeah.
So if you want a camera of this spec and you're in that market where you're a 1DX Mark III user and you're using it for professional level work, you're either being given the camera on somebody else who's been paying for it, i.e. the company you work for, or you can afford to have it.
Yeah.
So at that point, you know, yeah, $7,000 is $7,000.
$7,000 is $7,000, and you know there is a price increase in cameras coming. You know, up here.
The better they get, the more
yeah,
more
yeah, no,
expensive it's gonna be,
yeah, no,
you know?
exactly. And there's only so good that you can get at like a certain price as well. To be fair,
Yeah.
And talking on that note of like cameras which are trying to fill a certain price point, but bringing it back to the other end of the spectrum as well. And this is a video that's going to be released later on this week, maybe. That's the Z6 Mark III.
Yes.
So the Z6 Mark III, I don't think it was actually released this month, was it?
Yeah.
It was released this month.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there you
pretty
go.
sure it's this month or last month, but it's current news.
Flash the date.
Current news. Yeah. It's not yesterday's news, but it's current.
But what was interesting with that is because you've got the partially stacked sensor.
Yes.
So this is their way to reduce the cost of stacked sensors, essentially.
Yes, that's right.
And have a more entry-level price with a really decent amount of specs.
Yes.
And you can see how the market's reacted to that quite heavily and actually said it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the only point I was going to make really is Nikon have been quite clever with the Z6 III. Because having owned a Z6 II, in fact I own two of them, I can see where they've made the improvements, and it's significant improvements. Yeah. It's not like a sort of Apple situation where you bring out a phone for the sake of it, or you add a little something to it to bring out a new model. It's very much, they've taken the Z9 and then made it smaller with the Z8, and then they've made a baby brother. So you've got big brother, middle brother, and little brother. Yeah. And that's how I view it. Because they are essentially the same sensor all the way through, apart from the Z6 III, which is lesser in megapixel. But that 30 frames a second is going to matter to some people. Yeah. And it's going to be quite a jump where you don't have that on the Z6 II. You've got, 12 to 14 frames a second on it. And it's a better tracking system. It's just better, generically speaking. And it is essentially what the first one should have been.
Definitely. And if I'm honest, I had actually had a lot of fun shooting with it. And it actually comes, like, even when it came down to the optical performance of the viewfinder, I know you didn't necessarily like it in the shop. Yeah. But I thought it was one of the best viewfinders that I've actually used to date. And I think we were mucking around with settings quite a bit as well.
We probably were, yeah. But like Nikon are quite known for very clear viewfinders, because it's a big glass element that sits on the top. Even with the mirrorless stuff, it's quite a chunky bit of kit. So, and that's one thing that I always liked about Nikon, was that there was very little noise in the viewfinder. It was very clean, almost like you're looking through an actual mirror, even though you're not. Sure. So that does matter to a lot of Nikon users. So yeah, but other than that, amazing camera, nice form factor to it. It does feel like you're carrying, again, a baby brother of the Z8. Yeah. It does have that form factor to it. But yeah, no, I thought it was brilliant. And I would have upgraded 100%. If it was still Nikon,
I know. And like, it comes at a time for me as well where, like, I'm tempted to have another camera brand in my lineup because I want to try something new. This is not a slate on Sony. It's all shot on Sony. I absolutely love them. But there's a point where a camera becomes too reliable.
Yes.
And you got to challenge yourself every now and then. So, like, was looking at Z6, have had to go with GH7 as well, which would be interesting. I want something a little bit smaller. And this is all coming off the back of one camera in particular that I enjoyed shooting with. Yeah. And that's the Pentax 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that camera. I knew as soon as they released that, I was like, Stuart's going to be all over this.
Yeah, but what do you think of it? Do you think camera brands, I mean, you know, Leica do it, or Leica's Leica, so they can do whatever they want, really. But when it comes to, like, Pentax, although it's not really a main camera brand anymore, it's one of the original OGs, right?
It is, yeah.
What do you think about older, you know, the OGs releasing film camera? Or
I think it's smart from a marketing point of view. Yeah. I think it's very clever what they're doing. They're sort of capitalizing on the young generation, which is what a lot of brands have taken for some reason a while to get caught up on. Yeah. And I think listening to things like social media trends where Polaroid is trending constantly, 35mm trending constantly. it doesn't matter in what form, it's the subject of that topic that changes on the trend. So I think from a marketing point of view, it's clever. I think the price point is right. It's $499. A lot of people think it's ridiculous, but that will happily spend £350 to £450 on a camera that's 20, 30 years old. Yeah. So they've kind of knocked it out of the park as far as marketing is concerned. It's whether they're a little bit too late to the bat, and whether they're going to actually be able to pick up on the influx of traction from this kind of...
But it's done something people haven't done, haven't talked about in a while. It's got people talking about Pentax. No offense, Pentax, but
it's like the granddad with the Zimmer frame.
It is like the granddad with the Zimmer frame, but he's got a lot of really good stories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And do you know what? Pentax... you know, even for up until I say maybe the end of DSLR, was still very much in keeping with the other brands. It's just mirrorless came out, and for some reason Pentax didn't gravitate. And they sort of stuck with that DSLR K3 Mark III, was it? And then for some reason went into tough cameras, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Well, they've always been into tough cameras, and you know the tough cameras are pretty great. But like they've needed to revitalize the brand in some way, and I think they've done a really good job with this, and I applaud them for it. Yeah. Last kind of little bit of general camera news really is the ZV-E10 when it comes to the main manufacturers, unless you can think of any others, and the ZV-E10 Mark II. And what do you think of that? Because you and Sophie in particular really enjoyed
we did enjoy using it, and because it solves a problem, and it's that vertical shooting capability, which I know a lot of Sony cameras have built in already, but
I think this is the first one to actually introduce it.
So if you film, so we're filming with Sony cameras now. I know if you film with the A7C II and you film it portrait, you'll get a portrait orientated file. You will.
Yeah, I know that.
But you won't necessarily get the whole menu system rotating with it. And so you spend a lot of time like this, filming like that, or you'll shoot it landscape and then crop later. But it fills a gap for content creators particularly, because it's for ease of use. And that's what it very simply comes down to.
And that's kind of what I was getting with the video that we did on it. The angle in which I decided to go on it is rather than get you to use it, who shoots all manual settings that has an in-depth knowledge on cameras. Yeah. What I wanted to do is actually to get a couple simpletons.
Hi, Sophie.
Joking. I get a couple people that don't necessarily have the entire knowledge of the spectrum. I'm not saying that I do. I'm not perfect. But don't have as extensive knowledge of, the spectrum.
It's there for people.
It's very much for people like that, personally.
Yeah. It's there for people who... I imagine the ideal customer for that to be somebody who's busy all the time. Yeah. Hasn't got time to sit down and go through YouTube and learn how to do this, that, and the other. Yeah. It's constantly moving, constantly on the phone. That's the kind of person I envisioned for the camera. And so that was the approach that we sort of took with it, which was... Look, these people are too busy to be learning photography and videography, but they want the highest quality, and the easiest way to be able to achieve that is with a camera like the ZV-E10 II. Get it straight onto your smartphone, introduce them to AirDrop if they've got an iPhone, and off you go. You don't even need to use the app. Sorry, Sony, but you don't. So there's definitely a target market for it. And from a social media perspective, our videos did quite well on that camera. Purely on the basis that we started to try and target content creators. So we want more of you guys to join us, because you guys are as important as pro photographers are in terms of buying cameras.
Well, this is it. Like, it's not necessarily just for the sale, really. I think people, you got your photographers, you got your videographers, but there's a rapid expansion of content creators that don't necessarily do everything for the art of it, but want to tell a story, want to show a different point of view, want to play a board game together and show that off. And you need to understand that there is other people that these cameras are for sometimes.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So, other than that, there's not really much. We also did a video on the Leica M11P and the SL3. So, click it down below if you want to check out those. I think we shall move on to some more general news.
Yeah. So, big thing happened in the world of the United States of America recently. You might have seen it. kind of impossible to miss it, really.
The Olympic basketball team was introduced to so of course there was an assassination attempt on the life of Donald Trump.
Yes,
which is, you know, he's quite a divisive figure, and for the most part we're going to kind of keep this as politically neutral as possible. I say for the most part completely particularly neutral. But we're going to be talking about some of the camera related stuff coming out of it.
So there's been a lot of discussion around the assassination attempt. And particularly the photos of that particular moment
in time.
You know, in time. And it's a very, very short moment in time, but has become very substantially noticeable.
Yes.
And then it's, of course, the World Wide Web has taken hold of it, and there's different interpretations of what's going on and blah, 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 blah. And it's just become a huge... I want to say a certain word, but I can't on the podcast. But it's become a huge, you know, ball of... clusterfuck, which is exactly the word I was thinking of. But
that's fine. I can use the beep button.
Yeah, it has. So there are a few photographers to mention, and we've seen the photos. So the one particular one I think has probably had the most amount of discussion. I mean, they've all had a lot of discussion, but is the one with the bullet flying in the background. Yeah. And people are sort of questioning whether it's real, whether it's not, whether it was AI, whether it was blah, 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 blah. But we can confirm that, yes, the photographer did actually capture a bullet.
And he's done this by showing the metadata of it all as well, to show that it's
literally
not been edited.
Dropped the raw file. And went, here you go. And it's the original photo, and you can clearly see. Yeah. You know, be very, very hard to fake it, really, being completely honest, because there are other elements in that photo which make it believable. It's not sharp. It's completely out of focus. I mean, it's very out of focus. But you can quite clearly see a bullet flying there. But what's interesting is the settings. So it was shot on a Sony A1, which is, as we know, one of the top Sony cameras, and it's no surprise that camera's made an appearance because it's
completely not surprised with that at all.
But and here's the thing, because I know we were talking about this recently, is the lens 24mm prime 1.4 and it sort of got me thinking, well, if you were to set up that scenario, not that you ever would, but if you would that be the lens of choice? No, it wouldn't be. It'd be something like a 24-70, 70 to 200.
It would be, like that, if you were to set it up, not talking conspiracy theories at all, if you were to set it up, exactly. But the other thing is, it's actually quite a tight photo as well, because you got that 50.1 megapixel sensor. You can really crop in, and I've had experience of the camera actually in terms of in a professional environment as well, and it is excellent in that case. So 24, though you may not necessarily consider it the best lens for that particular situation, I think it does make sense if you really think about it, especially with the ability to crop.
But you've also got to consider distance in terms of how close he was allowed to be to the president. There are factors that come into it of, you know, you're only allowed to be there for a certain amount of time, if you're allowed there at all. But also how close are you allowed to get to the president of the United States without Secret Service going, oi,
and
you know,
this is something to be said about all the photographers that were at the event. Is as soon as they heard the shots ring out, they went for the photo. They didn't run. Which, you know, you got to admire them for doing that, because when it comes to photo journalism, you know, having the balls to do that is impressive.
So I've photographed protests. I've been in the thick of situations that can get a little bit hairy at times. It's been a while, but when I was doing a lot of event photography before I worked here, there were elements of photographing things that weren't particularly nice, and people can get irate and aggressive and blah blah blah. And it's unfortunately one of those things that when you work in that environment, it's something that you're going to end up confronting at some point. And you know, some people don't want to be photographed, and that's just the be all or end all of it. But if you've been working in the industry for as long as this gentleman has, and his name, by the way, is Doug Mills, and he works for the New York Times, and he has been photographing the White House for about 30 to 40 years. So he's been around a while. And it's a natural instinct as a photographer, I think, to really get your mind into the game. And so if you hear gunshots firing, probably didn't hear it at first. It's very, very likely that, okay, he's heard a gunshot, maybe 2 or 3 shots in. By that point, it's too late anyway. if it was a very serious situation. So what are you going to do? It's chaos. Security are trying to keep people in one place as much as, yes, people need to run for their lives. The president needs to be protected. And so, you have to think on your feet straight away, like you're being shot at. Get over it. Get in for the picture, and that's what they did. And it's not just him. There's other photographers as well that did that.
Yeah, no, it was overall really impressive. Do you know who took this photo out of them?
Yes, so that photo, I believe, was taken by somebody called... Where are they? A guy called Evan Vucci. Like Gucci with a V, from the Associated Press.
So this is the photo that we're talking about. It's photo from Evan Vucci, and a lot of people are talking about it winning the Pulitzer Prize. I don't think it will do, because it's one of the most iconic photos, I think, of this generation, really, when it comes to the politics and everything about the composition, the craziness of the actual shot, and kind of like everything like that. What have you?
Well, it's a photo that doesn't really need to be explained.
No.
And it's very point blank obvious what it is. Maybe in 20, 30 years, we need to explain it in a history lesson, in GCSE history or something. But it quite clearly shows, everything that happened in that situation in one photo. And if the photos for me that stand out the most are the ones that don't need to be explained. You just put them up and you know immediately what that is.
Exactly. And there are historic photos across everything. And no matter where you sit on the line in terms of politics, this photo is going to go down in history as one of those moments of a political figure. I'm
kind of jealous. I am kind of jealous, because that's a photo I think, wow, I wish I'd taken that. Because it is like, that's going to be on posters and T-shirts, and it's just going to fly, 100%. And it's going to be on every TV show about Donald Trump. God knows how long.
Oh God, yeah. And one of the things that I feel, one of the things that I noticed about the camera, the meaning kind of like I took from it that I haven't necessarily seen in a lot of the videos, because of course we've done a bit of research before doing this, unlike usually where we do no research. And that is the fact that the flag is kind of like upside down, and it kind of again, this can be taken many ways, any side of the aisle. But he has kind of turned like the country to
on
its
head.
side, on its head a little bit.
Essentially.
Now it's not completely upside down, sure, and you can argue that all day. But I think the general composition of it kind of, because you always imagine, the stripes and stars being, of the thing, stripes, the stars at the top, stripes down the bottom, and that's kind of like the composition you expected it to be, right? 100%. But what I found quite interesting about this is that it's one of those things which is like a photo that kind of has other meanings to it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think there are other kind of like photojournalistic things, and you can talk about the Times here. I mean, the Times have plenty of like memorable covers. I mean, and I think I don't even know if it's worth mentioning, but the Times photo, it kind of goes onto one side of the aisle, though, to be fair.
This is Vlad.
Huh?
Vladimir Putin.
Was he actually on? Was he on the Times?
He's on the cover of Times magazine. Yeah, there's a very interesting story about Vladimir Putin on that, which is very relevant. It's not current news, but it sort of sits in with the same thing.
It was like this in particular. And the thing that the Times do well is that they kind of have a look at different ways of telling a like not necessarily a narrative, because they don't necessarily fall on one side of the aisle. They tell stories about things, right? And I thought it was just a really way to do it.
One thing I've noticed since we've been talking about it's just come to me now. We've talked so much about the content of the photograph, and then when you consider cameras and lenses, where does that fit? Well, this is one of those odd situations where it doesn't really matter what camera you have or what lens you have. The best one is the one you have with you there and then, regardless of brand. And it's totally like, it totally just throws everything else up in the air, doesn't it? Because those moments are way beyond the importance of what camera is.
And I think there's something else to be said here about kind of like you're talking. A lot of people talk about AI imagery and how it's going to take over and it's getting better and better and it's getting mad crazy. But when it comes down to a photo, the meaning is derived by the experience.
Yeah.
And this is why that Trump photo was excellent. This is why a photo of you when you were a kid in a particular situation, is also, it means a lot more to you than something else. You get what I mean?
100%.
AI imagery, it can, for example, you can probably tell an AI image to draw up a photo of Trump getting assassinated and the FBI will be calling, right?
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the same sort of thing.
No, it's not. It's
that
not.
probably is very controversial.
It will be. Yeah, but you'll be able. If it was AI, you'd be able to tell.
Yeah.
I think because it's not.
Maybe
it's not that great. But
exactly. But this is our experience of history.
Yeah.
And how we experience it in the future is through photos. And that's why, getting photographs taken on special occasions is popular and all of this is because that is a moment in time that people have captured.
But it's also backed up with evidence. And that's the difference.
Yes.
Because the guy who
evidence,
photographed it as well, one of the photographers there was wearing a GoPro at the time, filming himself photographing Donald Trump. And you can clearly see it's, and there's so many different angles, so many different perspectives. It'd be very hard to fake that.
Yeah.
And especially, smartphones start coming out, people start recording stuff, people, so there's a lot there to say. But if you put an AI image out, people start going, well, okay, where's the evidence? It's hard to sort of contradict it. There was another photo that came out as well, shot by a lady called Anna Moneymaker.
That's
I mean,
I tell you what, she must be rich.
Yeah, you're living up to your namesake here. I can
especially since she's actually a Getty photographer.
Yeah, she's Getty Images. Yeah, 100%. She shot the photo where you can clearly see with Trump, he's got the blood running down his face, and she shot it between the legs of the Secret Service guy.
Yeah.
And whilst he's being pulled down on the ground. Which again is another iconic photo. Again, not sure what camera she shot with, but that one is doing the rounds. But I like the fact as well that a female photographer got in on that as well, without being politically driven in any way, shape or form. But it's important to mention, it was a great shot, honestly. And but what I liked about her photo compared to the others, it felt like there was a lot more thought process behind what she was shooting, because she had to shoot through something and she had to frame that in a certain way. Whereas the other ones, it's like, wow, you're rushing to get that shot, and very, very lucky that they got those shots. But I feel like with hers, it's like, no, she's deliberately gone in.
Well, the other side of it is she told a different story there than what the other guys did, because the other guys kind of showed power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily the shot of the bullet. I mean, that was just lucky. Sorry. That was
the
just
photographer
lucky.
said himself, he said it was completely by chance.
Yeah.
He got a scientist to actually analyze the chance of that happening, or him being able to capture that shot at 1/8,000th of a second was 1 in 5 million.
It's mad. However, Sony's marketing campaign for their one has now just gone through the roof.
100%.
Catch a bullet.
Yes.
I need to stop saying stuff like this, Stuart. You're going to end up annoying somebody. What was I saying? So you're talking about people that captured a couple of different emotions here. Of course, you got the fluke, the chance.
Yeah.
You got the person showing the power
of Donald Trump. Yeah.
And then the person getting the images showing almost the vulnerability and the weakness
in the side. That's it.
And in that terms of like the spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean that itself, I think, is impressive.
And to think it all happened within 30 seconds.
Yeah. Man,
it's crazy and it's quick, and it shows you as a photographer you got to think on your feet, and you've got to really be in the moment. And if you miss it, it's age old adage of right moment, right time, right place.
Yeah, no, definitely. And sometimes, like, I'm a big believer of the best laid plans. Sometimes you've got to have a bit of wiggle room for stuff, and being able to teach yourself to be able to react in the moment. I think is one of the biggest things. But react respectfully in the moment as well.
Yeah, of course.
There's some people that will literally just get in your face, like you see a lot of these like cop cam videos and stuff.
Yeah,
that's fucking going all over the place today, aren't you? Sure, Jesus.
That's right. So moving on from that,
What we got next?
where are we? The Olympics.
Oh, of course. So we've got the Olympics, which has had a load of different news. And talking about non-photography news, I just find this particularly funny.
Okay.
Is that the president and the prime minister of like Paris and like and of France,
President Macron.
yeah, they basically said, we think that the rivers in Paris are so clean that we'll happily swim in them, because of course a lot of the swimming part of stuff is done in the CERN. It's the CERN, isn't it?
CERN,
Yeah. And immediately the internet and like somebody created a site to tell people to poo in the CERN and giving them accurate times.
Yeah.
To
It's definitely not that clean. I've been to Paris.
No, well, would you swim in the Thames as well?
No, definitely not.
No.
Absolutely not. No. But yeah, so there's
Photography.
one photographer that I follow that does the Olympics, a guy called Jeff Cable, works for Canon. He follows Team USA, and he just recently posted on his Instagram, if you're watching, Jeff, hi, the Canon stockroom at the Olympics.
Okay.
We're going to put the image up, and you can see.
Yeah.
I've never had lens envy, ever.
No.
And now I do.
There's something like a boy wonder with that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember when the A9 came out and I went to Turkey to test it out, and they had a stockroom full of stuff, and the pelly cases literally filled up this side of the room, like a couple pelly cases deep.
Yeah.
On just the amount of stuff that they brought, and it's crazy.
So if you're watching and you don't know how much these lenses cost, you're talking a 5-figure sum for each lens, roughly, down to maybe
the big
1,000
ones,
for the big ones, because they'll take the telephoto sports stuff. It's mostly white Canon lenses, and if you see white Canon lenses, they're money.
Money.
So
money.
it's probably £500,000 worth in one photo there.
Oh,
at least.
for sure.
At least.
It's going to be interesting to see what the images come out of this year's Olympics.
Yeah, it's a little early to tell yet because we're only a couple of days in, aren't we?
No,
but,
and it's very much. I think what we're going to end up finding is a lot of videos coming out afterwards about the battle of the flagships as well, because you're going to have the Z9, the A1. Not the A1, the A9 III, and then the Canon R5 II.
Yeah.
No, the R1.
The R1 and the R5. Well, either or. I mean,
either or.
It's going to be...
It's an interesting time for flagships.
This would be the first Olympics where they've generally, each brand has had a mirrorless flagship in a sports sort of sense, So we'll have to see what comes out of it, really, but we won't know just yet.
Oh, okay. So the Leica Deluxe 8, that will be coming out soon. I've just done a video on it. Just waiting to hear for your feedback. I liked it. Again, I'm going through this experience where I'm looking for a nice, small, compact camera.
Yeah.
That I can have on me, just hanging down by it. Because I keep like a clip with my keys and everything on it. So I want a camera which I don't need to care about. So but I just want to take some photos. I don't think the Deluxe kind of fits that route, but it was a lot of fun to shoot with, and the photos I got with it, I'm going to put them up on the screen. That was actually quite happy with, purely because they were very Martin Parr in their kind of like thing. I went down Barry Bados, good old Barry Bados, going with Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah. We've done a bit down there, haven't we? To be fair, we've done a bit down there.
No, but the camera itself is a lot of fun. I don't necessarily believe the price tag is correct.
Yep.
But it is a Leica thing, and I have actually got myself quite a bit of Apple stuff, so I can't really say that the brand kind of like lure.
We both shoot Sony too.
Is not there.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from a Leica point of view that yes, it's a premium brand. Is it a premium product? I would say it is. Yeah, but is it more premium than something that's cheaper? No. But again, if you're invested in the Leica brand, you're going to pay what you want for it, and that is how it is. And they're very good, and they're worth the price.
And do you know what? The M11P, overpriced. Do I still want it?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
For a camera that doesn't really have anything to it.
It's a flex.
It's a flex. It's very much a flex.
I paid £1,500 for this. and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, but it is a great camera. To be fair, I had hold of it for a couple of minutes before you took it down. Barry Beardos. And yeah, I was quite impressed with it. To be fair, it got a nice vibe to it.
The lens was sharp. Is it going to beat the X100VI?
No.
I'm mentioning the X100VI just so I can get the tag in the thing and be like X100VI.
Well, that
is
what
what the viewers.
But
if you joined because you search X100VI, I got you.
Yeah, but you're right. That is the camera people are going to be comparing it against. 100%. I personally would go for Fuji. Nothing against Leica. But that's because I really, really want it and I really like it. And Nick won't let me have one, even though I've seen 3 or 4 of them and they've gone through the shop, but he won't let me have one because I get it cheaper. Spoilers, staff discounts. I want to talk to you about your car's extended warranty.
But very much, I should have probably put this on quiet. Yeah, I don't think. I think it might be for a different person than the Fuji thing. I think if they are aiming it towards that, I think it falls short a little bit. But again, that kind of depends on how long people would want to wait for a X100VI.
Yeah.
When I think there are other options. I mean, talking about video from ours, it's done pretty well, and I was really happy to see that it's done really well. And that's the XT50 video.
Yes.
I think it's overall a really great kind of like
it's brilliant.
Showcase.
It's brilliant. Yeah. Honestly, it is. The only thing about it is that it's probably just too big in comparison to something like an X100VI or a Deluxe 8. If you
it's smaller, the XT50.
Is it really?
Smaller, it's easier to access the things. If people really look at it, because it's got the same sensor as well, if people really look at it, the XT50 is actually a better choice.
Because it's interchangeable lenses.
Because it's interchangeable lenses. You can get a beautiful little 27mm and, you've got that 35 that you want. I know it's not quite 35. Calm down, Craig, in the comments.
Shut up, Craig.
Shut up, Craig. But yeah, it's one of those, I think, yes, the Deluxe, really good camera. Again, it comes down to kind of like personal kind of like thoughts as to kind of like the price tag. If it kind of fits out your kind of like way of getting it, then, click the comments down below.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's one of those, it's a camera which is great, but I still don't think it wins.
Okay, yeah.
If you're talking about it could like being first, second, third.
Yeah.
But
I still want the X100VI.
Everyone wants the X100VI, and I think the X100VI has, it's got the cream of the crop. And to be honest with you, I really like the rangefinder design, so I like it purely because of that as well.
Yeah, sure.
But also, it's a weird time when it comes to premium compacts right now, because it's kind of like the death of compact cameras, because people are going into... So what I think happens, and this is my theory, last little theory of the day, because I feel like we're probably running over quite a bit, is you have stages. Once something stops becoming widely produced, suddenly there's a hype about it.
Yeah.
For example, digicams. Digicams, and they are your terrible compact cameras, shit cameras that are dirt cheap, but people are loving them right now.
Yeah, they are.
Same with film, right? So I think that's the thing with compacts. People are starting to like the used market on like digital compacts. Because they're not great, and it's that nostalgia bait. Because as people get older, the cameras that their parents used when they were young start to go to the next level.
Yeah, they do.
There might even be a point in our lifetime where DSLRs are like, oh,
I know. Could you imagine? That would make me feel old, man.
That would make me feel old.
I'd give up at that point.
Do you know like Toy Story's going to be 30 years old?
Oh, don't.
This month.
Don't.
No, not this month.
Yeah.
But, soon.
We're talking about Toy Story because there'll be a relevance. You'll see why. Yeah, I know. Well, we have customers coming into the store, and they're saying, "I want to buy a compact camera," and you go, "Okay, how much do you want to spend?" And they go, 50 quid, and we just go, because
But you can do that these days, and people are enjoying the digicams.
But and you can do that. But the thing is, they want a £50 modern compact camera.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
And that's not going to happen now, unfortunately, because pretty much all of them have been discontinued. The only ones that you can buy new now are the Sony RX100 Mark V and above. Or you can try and get hold of a Canon G7X Mark III. Let me tell you, it's not going to happen.
We might have to take this out because we might need to actually check to see if it's true. Do you know Kodak have taken over Canon for digital compacts in Japan?
Biggest selling camera company in the world for compact cameras is now Kodak.
Well, yeah, I thought it was all cameras. No, it's
compacts mostly. Yeah,
pretty sure. They're the only ones that produce them.
Yeah, but they're not producing full.
And everyone else is producing premium compacts, right?
But that's a complete throwback to the point when Kodak was probably the only camera company in the world, apart from maybe one or two others. And now they're a 50 million.
So, until they said, digital's not going to become a thing.
Yeah.
And what do you know? They're the largest digital compact camera in the world in 2024.
I know. Look what happened.
Which is something to say. It's mad. The camera market is just crazy.
It is crazy, and it's frustrating, and it's amazing at the same time. Because, like I said, we get customers coming in who want to buy a compact camera that they just want to put in their pocket, which, even 2 or 3 years ago, you could get one for 50 quid. Really rubbish one, 4 times zoom, 10 megapixel, but it did the job.
Yeah.
And it was the camera that we all hated because we wanted you to buy the more expensive one. Now we want you to buy that same camera at £500 to £700.
There you go.
So that's it, and it's all your own fault.
Okay, before me or you comes up with the next subject that we're going to talk about, that is just going to be completely unrelated to everything else. We're going to call it a day, I think, for this month's version of Camera Central News.
We were supposed to say that at the same
time.
Where
we talk about cameras every day. Woo! This is Camera Central.
This is what I have
Camera Central News, baby. Camera Central.
5 days a week.
Camera Central News. There might be a bulletin. If you like this video, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ta-ra.
Done.
Done.